The mystery of the Sumerians. Were they migrants or the first true natives of civilization's cradle? Ancient Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates birthed Sumerians, the mysterious pioneers who shaped the world's earliest civilization. Here's where it gets strange. Nobody really knows where the Sumerians came from. One of history's biggest riddles hides right here. Some scholars argue they were indigenous people who rose straight from the Fertile Crescent itself, carving cities out of river clay. Others suggest they were migrants, outsiders who arrived suddenly with skills too advanced to ignore. And here's the catch. Their language doesn't fit anywhere. It's a true isolate, unrelated to Semitic tongues around them, making them linguistic orphans in a crowded neighborhood. Archaeology adds more fuel. One moment, small villages. The next, monumental temples and bustling cities, like Uruk. No gradual buildup, just a leap. It's like someone pressed fast forward on human development. How did they do it? Nobody can pin it down. Ancient myths hint at divine gifts, while modern theories whisper about unknown migrations from the east or even prehistoric seafarers. But the truth, buried beneath mud brick ruins and broken tablets. All we know for sure is this: whoever they were, the Sumerians didn't just appear. They transformed human history overnight. But here's the thing. Mystery alone doesn't build civilizations. Geography gave them the edge. The Sumerians lived where two rivers danced, the Tigris and Euphrates. Each year, floods poured fresh silt onto the land, soil so rich it almost glowed under the sun. They weren't just lucky farmers, though. They engineered irrigation canals, dug trenches, and redirected water with mathematical precision. What did they grow? Barley, thick as gold, wheat, onions, and dates sweet enough to trade far and wide. Surpluses piled up. And with surpluses came options. Bigger populations, stronger armies, and new trades. Cities began to swell like never before. This was the Fertile Crescent in action, not just feeding mouths, but fueling ambition. The fields outside the city walls weren't just farmland. They were the foundation of the world's first urban experiment. And this is where it gets even wilder. Those fields gave birth to cities unlike anything before. Uruk, and Lagash, names that still echo. Each was a world of its own, walled strongholds with temples climbing skyward. At the center stood the ziggurat, part stairway to the heavens, part beating heart of politics and religion. Kings ruled, but they didn't claim power alone. Their authority came stamped with divine approval, whispered through priests who read the will of the gods. Councils of elders and administrators kept the machine turning, ensuring taxes flowed and canals stayed clean. But make no mistake, these were not peaceful utopias. City fought city, armies clashed, and alliances crumbled overnight. Yet through all the chaos, something lasting was being born. The blueprint for the nation-state, the model of governance still recognizable today. The Sumerians weren't just building walls, they were writing the first draft of organized politics. So what was life like inside those walls? Picture a pyramid, social, not stone. At the top, kings and priests claiming both divine right and earthly wealth. Just beneath were nobles and officials who kept trade routes open and laws enforced. Merchants thrived in buzzing markets, and artisans carved wonders from clay and metal, while farmers bent their backs in fields beyond the city. And at the bottom, enslaved people, captives of war or debt, the invisible force powering society. But it wasn't all hierarchy. Festivals shook the streets with music, rituals bound people together, and women played roles from priestesses to traders. Daily life wasn't survival, it was culture in motion, a rhythm that made the first cities truly human. Now here's the part that blew my mind. The Sumerians invented writing. Not poems first, not novels, numbers. Around 3100 BCE, they pressed wedge-shaped marks into wet clay. Cuneiform was born, starting as simple tallies for grain, sheep, and trade. But it grew. Soon, it was law codes, hymns, and epic tales like Gilgamesh. Knowledge finally had a memory. Clay tablets filled archives, each one a frozen snapshot of contracts, inventories, and prayers. Bureaucrats used them to track taxes. Priests used them to record omens. Scribes became powerful gatekeepers of words. Think about it. Without cuneiform, there's no history, just scattered bones and ruins. The Sumerians didn't just invent writing, they invented memory itself. And from that point forward, civilization could never forget again. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. The Sumerians didn't just farm, they measured the universe. They built their math on base 60, a system so genius we still use it today for time and angles. 60 minutes in an hour, 360 degrees in a circle. That's the Sumerian legacy ticking in your watch. They tracked planets crawling across the sky, mapped eclipses, and carved a 12-month lunar calendar that guided planting and ritual alike. This wasn't abstract theory, it was survival mixed with wonder, predicting floods, guiding harvests, honoring gods. Their eyes on the heavens, their hands in the soil, the Sumerians lived at the crossroads of math and a myth. But wait, it's about to get even more revolutionary. Sumerian genius wasn't locked in temples, it thrived in fields and workshops. They mastered irrigation, building canals and dikes that bent rivers to their will. Crop rotation kept the soil alive. Domesticated animals pulled plows, multiplying harvests. Then came inventions that changed everything. Around 3500 BCE, the wheel rolled into history, not for war first, but for carts hauling goods. The plow carved deep into the earth, sails caught the Mesopotamian winds, and the potter's wheel spun clay into vessels of beauty and trade. And metals, copper, bronze, even gold, shaped tools, weapons, and ornaments. Every discovery added weight to their cities, fueling trade, wealth, and power. This wasn't just farming. It was technology in motion, civilization forging tools for its own survival. Now step inside their cities, these weren't random clusters of huts. They were blueprints of civilization. At the center, ziggurats towered, stair-stepped monuments linking earth and sky. Surrounding them, temples, palaces, and granaries spoke of both faith and administration. Streets weren't accidents, they were planned, weaving through markets, workshops, and homes. Walls rose high, guarding against rival cities. Canals cut through neighborhoods, carrying water and goods alike. Every brick carried order. Every layout revealed ambition. The Sumerians weren't just building for shelter, they were inventing urban life and city planning before the term even existed. And here's the soul of it all: religion. The Sumerians lived under the gaze of many gods: An, the Sky Father; Enlil, Lord of Air; Inanna, fierce goddess of love and war; Utu, the sun; and Enki, master of wisdom and water. Temples weren't just houses of prayer, they were economic engines, storage centers, and hubs of decision-making. Priests stood as both mediators with gods and managers of earthly affairs. Their myths carried weight. Tales of creation, cosmic floods, and divine justice explained not just the heavens, but human destiny. The Epic of Gilgamesh, born from this soil, still echoes questions about mortality and meaning. For the Sumerians, the divine wasn't distant. It walked their streets, ruled their seasons, and shaped their fate. Their tales are where their voice really endures here, capturing friendship, sadness, and the frantic quest for immortality. The world's first major epic, the Epic of Gilgamesh, recorded these events. These ideas, Gilgamesh and Enkidu's friendship, their fights with gods and monsters, and the ghostly acceptance of death still resonate today. It wasn't only one enormous one, though. Hymns to Inanna, prayers to Enlil, and laments for lost cities poured emotion into clay tablets. Their words did not linger underground. Rather, they affected the next epics, including biblical accounts of floods and God's fury. Though they could be dust, the Sumerians' poetry still breathes. Think about justice in the first cities of the world right now. Courts were everyday life, not abstract. Judges considered disagreements ranging from stolen products to land issues. Penalties might range from exile to death and fines. Though it was cruel, it kept order. Long before Hammurabi's code, Ur-Nammu of Ur set down legal principles. His code defined penalties, protected widows and orphans, and tied justice to fairness, not just power. Sumerian kings ruled as divine stewards, with law etched in clay as society's backbone. Farmers and merchants traded pottery, barley, and textiles for copper, wood, gold, and gems, reaching even the Indus Valley. Markets, canals, and scribes powered exchange, weaving Sumer into a vast, connected world. But war had a harsher rhythm in civilizations. Proud and ambitious, city-states fought constantly over land, waterways, and commercial routes. Rising high walls, soldiers marched, chariots roared into the fight. Sumerian armies were structured forces with bronze armaments, ranks, and strategies, not ragtag militias. Still, war made it possible for outsiders. Breaking the weak cohesiveness of Sumer under Sargon the Great, the Akkadians created the first empire on the globe. The Sumerians revealed a reality still true in both victory and defeat. Conflict is never far behind when wealth and power increase. Their brilliance found its boundaries right here. The rivers that sustained Sumer also destroyed it. Floods, droughts, and salinized soil eroded stability. Inequality deepened as elites thrived and workers suffered. Political strife and unrest weakened unity. Akkadians conquered first, followed by Babylonians, Assyrians, and Persians, who inherited Sumer's legacy but erased its independence. The great cities weakened, trade slowed, fields withered, and temples crumbled. Without unity, Sumerian identity dissolved into the cultures that came after. But collapse didn't mean disappearance. Their knowledge, inventions, and myths didn't die. They were carried forward, reshaped, and retold. Civilizations rise, shine, and fade. The Sumerians remind us even the first builders of history were not immune to history's weight. And yet, their fingerprints are everywhere. They gave the world writing. Cuneiform's wedge marks still whisper across clay tablets. They gave us cities, laws, bureaucracy, and schools. Their gods inspired myths that traveled into Greek, Roman, and biblical traditions. Their base 60 math still ticks in every clock. Their city-states were the prototypes for nations. Their legal codes set the path toward modern law. The Greeks and Romans may get credit for shaping the West, but the Sumerians built the foundation. Call them what you will, pioneers, dreamers, founders. They were the first to carve order out of chaos. The Sumerians may have vanished, but their legacy is immortal. From writing to law, their brilliance echoes across millennia. The cradle of civilization wasn't just Mesopotamia. It was the Sumerians' vision planting the seeds of human progress. So what do you think? Are they history's greatest forgotten architects?